Hello, this is Jean-Luc Martel of the Middle Ground. I think it's time that people seriously start talking, and not just talking, but doing something about the absurd ban on the sale of very specific and random items in stores, in retail stores. There is literally no good reason, no sound reason, no sane reason, no reason anybody can possibly think of why clothing, of all things, should be now considered a non essential item. You know what? See all this? It's a pretty fucking essential item. And yet, I just got banned, literally kicked out of a local Dollar Tree store for daring to try to purchase a bowl, a ceramic bowl, and a pair of socks. So they're willing. So basically, and then I did something stupid, and I called. I said, and I said, why? I said, I said, look, what if I just gave you some cash in the contest because they track all this stuff, and I'm like, but why? She said, well, that's the rules, isn't it? And at that point, I just lost it, and I'm like, you know what? That's exactly what the fucking Nazis said at Nuremberg. They all said the same thing: following orders. You know what? That may have been a stupid thing to say, because it was very much the heat of the moment. This has been my. I have to be honest. This was my first encounter with this ludicrous sales ban. But like, well, I wonder what they would say if a cop came in asking for those specific items. I'd really like to see that go down. I'd really like to see them say no to a cop. I'll bet they wouldn't. Tyrannies require the consent of the people to operate. Okay? It really does come down to that. V for Vendetta. If you want to look at who's responsible, you need only look into a mirror. Well, Canada, I'm looking at the reflection of every single person who is collaborating with our insane economic system right now that is basically, our government has declared war on Canada's own economy. They are literally pulling out the rug from underneath everybody's feet. What? Who gains from this? Aside from big online retailers, nobody gains from this. That's who. And any store that is going along with this is essentially complicit in this act of economic side. I don't even know if there's a word. I don't know if there's a word for this. If there is, I'd like to know in the comments section if there's a word for deliberate murder of an economy. But yeah, so with that economy people's lives are also going down. People are dying because of these insane random ass decisions. Look, I can wear a mask in a store, all right, if that's what I have to do. I can get a vaccine if I absolutely have to, even if it's got completely unknown long-term effects, etc. I get it. Plague, vaccine, got it. You need the vaccine. And every other vaccine and for every other big thing before it, people had to take them. I understand that. I get it. And vaccines are not magic medicine either. They don't just stop a disease. They provide armor essentially for your body's immune system, but that's all they do. They don't just magically stop the damn thing. They just make it a lot harder for the virus to take hold in your body. So those make sense. I'm still, to some extent, against the masks, mainly because of the culture of fear and paranoia they induce. But, this whole thing, we have followed all these absurd rules, many of which have contradicted each other, that have been handed down by our governments, both federal and provincial, in Canada. And you'll notice a distinct lack of rules that actually help people. Like, actually help. These rules are all basically stay at home, don't do this, don't do that, even though it makes no sense. And the reason why we're told these things, and when anybody asks why, well, the answer is because it's the rules, isn't it? And well, it wasn't 5 seconds ago. Well, it's the rules now, fucker. So that's literally the only thing keeping these rules from being not rules. All it would take would be a bunch of stores to be like, you know what? Fuck this shit. We've got all these things just sitting there on the shelves doing nothing. We're selling them. What are they going to do? Send somebody after every single one of our customers? Shut us all down? And you know, like, I understand. I don't understand the logic here. Like, they're harming their own businesses by willingly going along with this. They're alienating their customers who don't want to shop there anymore because they don't feel welcome, because they can't protest this bullshit without being, in my case, ejected. Like, I was literally, well, not by hand, but I was ejected from the store, along with the basket full of items that they actually could have sold me. By the way, rules or otherwise. I mean, they could have given me the bowl if they couldn't sell it. Like, there's a thought. If you're not allowed to sell it, then give them the damn bowl or the socks, because people are always looking for clothing donations anyways. So you know what, you bloody stupid ass stores, if the government sells, you can't sell the damn things anyways, and they've got an expiry date or whatever, then just give the fucking things away and empty your shelf space out for stuff you actually can sell, you stupid morons. It's so obvious. Why don't you just do that? You can empty your shelves out, replace them with something you actually can sell, rather give the stuff away rather than obeying this ludicrous edict. And even better, that would be a solid middle finger to the government's absurd rules. But I'll bet you ain't going to do that. You'd rather hoard these items that nobody's allowed to buy anyways on your stupid shelves than replace them with stuff you can buy by just giving them away. Great logic. Great logic. So yeah. Yeah. This system can exist basically because people are allowing it to exist. They're going along with this thing. They're acting like it's somehow normal for governments to mandate what you can and cannot buy, like even something as basic as clothing. No, you can only buy that from big evil online retailer Amazon now. Like, really? You literally have to make an online store simply to sell clothing at this point? How far have we fucking fallen where that's the state that we're in? I really want to know. I really want to talk to people, about this. Like, this whole thing is basically a regime of fear. People wear the mask because they're terrified of catching a virus. I'm not saying the virus isn't real, but I'm saying the primary motivation in most cases is fear. Because after all, the scariest things are those that cannot be seen or felt. Well, maybe felt but heard. The unknown is the scariest thing. And right now, we're in the middle of a virus most people know little about, because our government has done very little to give us any sort of solid plan, on how to deal with it other than more lockdown. More lockdown. And now they're talking about a wave 4. So that's code for we don't have a plan. We don't want you to get the economy going again. We don't want people to sell clothing in retail stores for whatever insane reason. No, we would much rather continue this completely self-destructive economic cycle. Burn bill. I mean, they might as well just start burning. They might as well start sending. They might as well start sending people with flamethrowers to burn down stores that refuse to go along with these rules, because that's honestly, at this point, it can't get much worse. I mean, I know it can always get worse, but it can't get much worse than this. It's literally one small step from where we're currently at to just basically sending the cops in to deal with whoever disagrees with the government at this point. The only real reason it hasn't already happened is because the police themselves have said, no, we're not asking random people for their papers and the reason for being out. That's the only reason why we're currently even have that much freedom. Think about that. The only reason we have any kind of freedom at all right now is because the cops told the government to go fuck themselves when they asked them when they told them to start enforcing these ludicrous these basically papers please law. That's the only reason. If it wasn't for the fact that the police apparently actually have some moral fiber in this country, then we would be essentially living under what amounts to a fascist dictatorship right now. We would literally be getting harassed by random cops just saying, "Why are you out? What's your business?" Yada yada. Oh, and yeah, by the way, all the public spaces will be closed down. That's something else. So, to sum up, we are all we would need at this point is a police department to be like, you know what? No, we're going to go along with this because Ford or whoever gave us a big bonus or bribe or whatever. And by the way, Ford's already tried that. Ford, it was on Twitter. Ford announcing that he's going to give extra funding, but only to the police for mental health care. So basically, that was a pretty blatant attempt to essentially buy their loyalty back, which fortunately seems to not have worked. But if it had worked, we would all now be having our papers checked. Like literally, the only reason we are currently not living in a very real police dictatorship is because the police themselves said no. That's the only reason. It's not because of resistance by the people. It's because the police said no. People are going to work every single day terrified that they will catch this virus, and yet zero provision is being made to make their lives any easier or safer by the people they work the faceless groups that they work for, or by the government. The government has shot down every attempt to mandate enforced paid sick leave. Every single attempt has been shot down. And, the fact that federal employees don't have to worry about paid sick leave, of course, is totally hypocritical in this regard. So if you work with the government, you don't have to worry about paid sick leave. It's not an issue for you. But if you're like the majority of the population stuck at a dead-end $15 hour minimum wage job, which is pretty much most of the population right now, let's be honest. You have zero worker safety. You have no paid sick leave. You can't even afford to take the time out to go and get a fucking vaccine shot. And even if you could, you'd probably be standing in a line for hours. And you probably would come home with nothing to show for it. Possibly carrying corona or any other number of infections that are going wild. They're probably going wild. I mean, what is this? What is this total obsession with coronavirus? Like, what about all the other things? The common cold, the flu, all this other stuff that people die from, or get sick from. What about all that? Has that just simply ceased to exist because Trudeau's narrative conveniently needs COVID to stay in power? Is that what? Like, how can doctors and, anybody of good conscience go along with this? Because every single one of you that does is abating a tyranny at this point. I mean, I literally get kicked out of a store for wanting to buy a fucking ceramic bowl and a pair of socks. That's where we're at. And the only reason why this is possible is because these businesses are going along with it. They don't seem to understand or care, I don't know what it is, but they just don't seem to grasp the concept that they're not even, like, from what I could tell, like at least a third of that Dollar Tree stores, it was a Dollar Tree, of that Dollar Tree store's stock was basically unsellable, just sitting there on a rack collecting dust. And Don't tell me clothing isn't essential. I'm wearing it. If I'm wearing it, it must be essential. But we're all forced to wear masks. Now, masks are non-essential items. Are they? I mean, just use a bit of logic here. It doesn't take much of a stretch of the imagination to imagine an absurd situation like this. For example, government declares all clothing is non-essential. Your clothing starts wearing out because you can't buy it, at least not in a retail outlet. And all the other places are closed too. So, but you still have to wear a mask, and you can still buy a mask, by the way, which is very convenient for the mask makers and sellers. So what comes next? I'll tell you what comes next. Your clothes start falling apart sooner or later because you can't buy any, except online. And then everybody's wearing masks, but they can't buy clothes. Fucking brilliant, isn't it? So what? What's the plan? To let all the clothes rot, fall apart, and turn us all into nudists? Or just force everybody to learn how to make their own clothes? Because that's another good way of putting a lot of businesses out of business. Is to force people to learn how to make their own clothing. Because at this point, we're going to have to. You know, these morons, these sheep, these... Honestly, I'm going to call them collaborators, because it's kind of what they are. These collaborators are going along with this, knowing that it's costing them a huge amount of their profit. These businesses are allowing the government to do this to them. How many businesses would it take to say, just be like, you know what, no. Nope, we're going to sell this stuff. Because it's like, you know, there's somebody on Facebook from Alberta. She's an MP, and I like her because she's not afraid of calling the government out on their bullshit. And for some reason, Alberta has been singled out for spectacularly hard treatment during all this. They have given a lot. They even donated stuff, vaccines, PPE, to Ontario. And what does Ottawa, which by the way is in Ontario, do but basically keep attacking them? Like, the Liberal government has a really bizarre fixation with screwing over Alberta and the energy industry in this country. I don't understand why. But they're using carbon taxes and whatnot, just are proven that they just don't work. They don't make any sense. All they do is penalize businesses without giving them an alternative. You know, that's where we're at. We're in a system, essentially, that penalizes businesses and gives them no other options, you know, other than, you know, obey stupid rule or else. I would really like to know what the or else is. Like, because if they just shut down every single business that refuses to comply, like, that's pretty much the definition of tyranny. You won't go along with the party line, so we're shutting you down. How is that not political? I mean, they might as well send... I mean, can you imagine if they did the same thing with, like, for example... oh, right, they are. It's called Bill C-10. Yeah, they're doing that to they're going to be doing that to YouTube and Netflix and who knows what else next. So they're already censoring physically what you can actually buy off racks. Now they want to censor what you can watch. Or what you can put up, for that matter. You know, so these videos I'm dropping on YouTube, in all likelihood, Bill C-10 will basically take down my channel. Think about that. They've already they've censored what you can buy. They've censored how you can live. They've censored what you can do. They've censored and now they're censoring the bloody media on top of everything else. So basically, once that's gone, we're fucked. It really is that simple. Once the media control is fully in place, and we don't even have that much of a free media in Canada anyways, but once that's in place, we are fucked. Why is nobody talking about this? The cumulative effects of all of these things. We are turning into a dictatorship right in front of everybody's faces, and most people have thine eyes averted. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, throw out customers who try to call you out on allowing said evil to exist. And as a parting fun fact of history, you know how the Nazis got into power? By being democratically voted in. Because their government, because the Weimar Republic's democratic government had failed completely and utterly in a way that's frighteningly similar to the way our government is currently going. Massive overspending, massive overspending, basically using the bank as their personal money lender and printer. Money doesn't grow on trees for a good reason, because if it did, it would have no value. Well, that's exactly what happened to the Reichmark, or is it Deutschmark, Reichmark, whatever the bloody German money was called before the mark, whatever. It got devalued to the point where it was basically worthless. It was literally just paper, and by essentially the exact same kind of money printing that our government is currently doing, massive, which will result in massive inflation, which conveniently enough only benefits the people who are printing off the money. So Trudeau and his friends will make a massive killing, because anybody basically who owns, like the aristocrats, people who own real estate and whatnot, the values of everything they have will go through the roof. Everything will become a lot more expensive, and it's steadily growing, by the way. According to Pierre Bolivier, the price of many consumer goods, including food, has jumped by like 2, and in some cases 5%, because of this inflation, and there's no reason for it other than because they can. That is literally the way our government is currently operating, because we're letting them get away with it, because they can, because nobody is out there saying, fuck you people, stop this or we'll do it for you. It really has to come down to that by the looks of it. You think we're going to have a free election? I mean, the next provincial election in Ontario alone is literally in 400 days. Is in 400 days. That's slightly over a year. Are we really willing to wait that long when this guy who we're going to be unelecting, or maybe re-electing, who knows, is actively try to lock down us down so hard we couldn't even go outside without a random cop coming up and questioning us why we're there and what's our business? We have to wait a year to dump this guy through an election which is likely to be as rigged as you can get? Like, does anybody actually believe Canada's a democracy anymore? Or honestly ever really has been? But if they ever believed it was a democracy before, they sure as hell shouldn't now. The government is literally dictating what we can buy off of store shelves, and they want to go, and they're going after the media in a big way. So, yeah, if people are content with that, just watching the whole thing burn, giving control over in all aspects of their lives to a government that has made it pretty damn clear they don't give a damn about your lives, because if they did, they would allow cancer patients to get treated, for starters. And by the way, I've been talking to people about that, and they say that the way cancer is being dealt with now actually isn't really that much worse than the way it was before COVID. So that should give people some food for thought. We've already given it away so much of our lives to fight this pandemic. And the government just keeps on asking, gimme, give us more emergency powers, gimme. And we just keep letting them do it. Now you can't buy clothing. Is that cool? Yeah, that's cool. The retailer's just going along with that. And Mother's Day doesn't get a pass either. I mean, do we literally have to have a cackling lunatic on a throne, throwing lightning bolts, screaming "unlimited power" before we realize we're living in a dictatorship? I mean, really, does it have to be that ludicrously comically obvious? Because it's looking more and more to me like that's literally where we're going to have to be at. And then people will be too afraid of the Dark Lord Palpatine to do anything about it anyways, right? I am disgusted with Canada as it stands right now. As far as I'm concerned, if people are willing to give up and give away all these things, just just basically just stand by while the government takes and takes and takes, then they don't bloody deserve to have anything, because they're allowing the government to take and take and take and take, and the corporations to take and take and take and take, and soon enough everybody who will be on minimum wage slave labor jobs where they have zero safety, where they can be fired at a moment's notice. No, there's already plenty of people in those kind of situations. Nobody will be able to buy a house. Nobody will be able to afford even basic education, because guess what? Schools have been shut down. Have you noticed that? So yeah. And meanwhile, planes continue to fly in from places like for example, India and Brazil, where they've got some of the worst COVID infections other than our own. But those are where the variants are coming from. Our government is literally has left the gate wide open for these viruses ever since the start of this. We're a year and a half into this, and we're worse off than literally almost any other country on the face of the planet, despite the fact that Trudeau insists that anybody who says that is just saying that because it's very convenient for their party. Like, that's literally his only response to that. You're a conservative. What do you know? You're an NDP. What do you know? Oh, by the way, the NDP and the Bloc Québécois are behind Bill C-10. So Jagmeet Singh, fuck you, because your party is 100% behind. Basically taking away freedom of the press is what it amounts, and freedom of expression. So, if that happens next, and it probably will, the way things are going, then you can thank Jagmeet Singh over your now completely state-owned media accounts. Oh, and also the Bloc Québécois, but what a surprise. Bloc Québécois backing Trudeau's party. Who'd have thunk it? So, I'm only 30 years old, right? So I'm going to have to live my life under a medical COVID, completely not based remotely in science, dictatorship that dictates what I buy and even what I'm allowed to consume on the media, and where I can go, whatever. And it's all going to have happened, and I'm going to have to live the rest of my life with this, all because people refused to go out there in the streets and say, fuck you, we're going to live our lives. Thank you very much. People would rather spend their time bullshitting and politicking and focusing on invisible unknowns rather than stuff that's right in front of their fucking faces. Then they would rather be terrified of a disease than very real systematic injustices. You all should be ashamed of yourself. Every single bloody Canadian on this should be ashamed of themselves for taking a willing part in this and just keeping their mouth shut. And I'm going to quote that MP from Alberta. She says, and I quote, "COVID is a luxury for people who can afford it." It's classist. That is what she said. So basically, it's a luxury for the rich to take sick leave, to have because they have paid sick leave. But everybody else, they can't afford not to go into work, whether they're sick or not. It doesn't matter whether it's with COVID or anything else. They can't afford not to go to work. That's a slave labor system. when you have people living so dangerously close to just losing to when you have people living that close to the line every single day, they can't even afford to take a few hours off to go get a shot. Like, really? But apparently people are cool with that, so who am I to question? You know? But yeah, Dollar Tree can go fuck themselves because, and anybody, any other business that's willing to go along with its insanity for a moment longer, they can go screw themselves because you know what? You're all you are all collaborators with a bunch of tyrants who have done everything they possibly can to destroy business, and you're just going along with to harm your businesses, and that includes your employees' lives. So you know what? Fucked a lot of you. This is Jean-Luc Martel, very angry of the middle ground.